2015. Call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Ahrens? Here. Kammerer?
Here.
Carbonaro?
Here.
Daney?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Ranky?
Here.
President Wallace?
Here. First item on our Committee of the Whole meeting is under the Planning and Zoning Committee. Chairman Ranky.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have two items on planning and zoning. The first item is Bartlett Point West, number 2. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Plazinski.
Thank you, Trustee Ranky. This is a project that you last saw as a concept plan. Bartlett Point West is west on Route 59, or west of Route 59 on West Bartlett Road, almost to Route 20. It was originally approved as a townhome development a number of years ago. The same developer, Wyndham Deer Point Homes, represented by Rich Gerard, is now asking to convert this development from a townhome development into a 29-lot single-family home development. This was the townhome layout, and this is the proposed single-family home layout. Southwind Boulevard, which serves this development, has not been completed yet, but it will soon be under construction. West of this is a kind of a mixed-use commercial and office area. Reliable Materials and Bluff City Materials have their office at the on Route 25. They're asking to amend the annexation agreement as for a preliminary and final plat of subdivision for the 29 lots, a preliminary and final PUD plan, and land use changes from the townhome PD zoning to an SR4 suburban residence district and a special use for a PUD in that suburban residence district, as well as a comp plan amendment. They have an extensive landscape plan that they will buffer the perimeter of the site with, and including putting a bike path along West Bartlett Road here in the county right-of-way, and that is Kane County. Kane County owns this. This will, if approved, will be our first residence in Kane County. Just the layout of some of the detail on the landscape plan with the wrought iron fences and some of the perimeter fences that will be part of the buffer and will be maintained by the homeowners association. There are some elevations of the proposed development, homes. Similar lot sizes in nature to Bartlett Ridge. These are a little deeper. They go about 125 feet. And here's just some plans that, or proposals that they will build these type homes. Rich Gerard and Wyndham Deer Point was involved in building Bartlett Point, which is just to the east of this site. So they're familiar with the area, familiar with the village, and glad to be back, and they are represented here tonight if you have questions for them. This does require a public hearing in front of the Plan Commission, and the Park Board has weighed in on the concept plan, and they will want some buffer zone park site on the south end, and Rich promises we'll get that wrapped up before it comes back to you. And the park site would be down here at the south end, because south of the park site is Kohler Fields. So that is essentially the layout of this. It's an almost 9-acre site, and they're here to get your blessing to move forward in the project. The Planning Commission.
Jim, my recollection is the last time we saw this, it was at the concept plan stage. Is that
Yes, that's correct. And it's similar at the concept. They did lose a lot because of the park site. They had 30 lots originally. It's down to 29.
I think we talked about somehow providing notice to potential purchasers that the property to the west is mixed use, so that they're aware of that when they make their purchase. And is that something that how are you going to give the potential purchasers?
Trustee Ranky, that's actually in the annexation agreement.
Okay.
Right now as a requirement, and we're working simultaneously on an amended annexation agreement where those issues will further be addressed, and it will be in the PUD ordinance.
Right.
Or the
Right.
subdivision ordinance as well.
So things like signage and things like that.
Just to introduce myself, I'm Rich Gerard, representing the owner, and as council said, that's in writing in the annexation agreement and other agreements And said, if I can answer any other questions, I'm happy to do it. I don't want to take your time unnecessarily, but also Kevin Matry from Mackey Engineering, the engineers here too, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions too. Thank you. Thank you.
That's great.
Is that disclosure kind of similar to what we just made Bartlett Ridge?
Yes, it's actually a little more extensive. When we started, we weren't sure when the townhomes or houses would be built. We had it for Bartlett West, and there was actually mining going on. So the mining is stopped. What we have now is reclamation. So over time with the amendments, so there's a requirement of posting in their sales office a map that shows the surrounding uses. We put it in their contracts. It has to be a part of the contract, so buyers see that right in up front.
Is that something that you're going to draft? And
We have done that, and we put it in the ordinance like you saw with Bartlett Ridge. This time it's a little more extensive.
We did, as I said, we built Bartlett Point, the subdivision next to it, and it was a similar situation there, and we never had an issue or problem with either the buyers or the village.
Right.
Very good.
I'd say there's not, some of us have seen this before, and because of that, I think because there's a reduction in the density, we should just move it on to Plan Commission.
Maybe my suggestion.
Agreed.
So we'll move the matter on to the Plan Commission.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you for coming.
Luck.
Item number 2 is case 15-14, the zoning ordinance text amendment to increase the building height in the industrial districts from 35 feet to 45 feet. And Jim, I have to thank you for doing this so quickly. I know we talked about it. Couldn't have been, 2 to 4 weeks ago?
It
So
was
you were-
fairly recently.
Yeah, and so you and your staff were right on top of this. It's much appreciated. You know, we talk about doing things to help businesses in the community, but this is definitely one of those things, so that they don't have to come through this process to build a little bit taller building.
Thank you. We, one of the reasons we got on it was that Mr. Duplo, who was here earlier, we've since talked to him about his next building that's going to be coming in, and we wanted to get this done, or at least move along before he brings in his next building. So he'll be probably the first one that will be able to get through with just the site plan. So this is ready to move on to the zoning board for a public hearing on the text amendment.
Good. Very good.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President. That's all we have for planning.
Again, Trustee Ranky, thank you for your being in there with your pneumonia. Try to stay away from him, Trustee Hopkins, if you would.
You stay right where you're at.
Next item on our committee of the whole meeting is under Police and Health Committee, Chairman Carbonaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one item, the police building study. On April 1st, 2015, the village published a request for qualifications, RFQ, architectural services. Services requested were broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 of the project is the space needs analysis. Phase 2 of the project is the facility evaluation and options study. There's no commitment to move beyond Phase 2. However, if after its review of the Phase 1 and Phase 2 reports, the village board wishes to continue to Phase 3, or renovation addition to the existing police facility or construction of a new police facility. The needs assessment and the facility evaluation and options study will be used as a foundation to determine the site options and building layouts. The village is under no obligation to proceed to Phase 3. I need to keep going?
You certainly all have the chief talk about the process and how we selected that firm and what we intend to do.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you remember, during the budgetary hearings this past year, the board challenged us and asked us to come up with some research to help them make decisions into the future regarding the present status of the police department. We're kind of at a crossroads with various systems without the building that are in need of repair or replacement, and there are space considerations that at least subjectively staff has concerns about. So we thought it was time with the direction of the board to get some real answers on that. With that, Village Attorney Brian Mraz assisted us with the board's direction to establish an RFQ. He authored the RFQ, and we publicized it throughout the industry, and we received 13 very viable candidates who requested to do this study. Of that, at that point, Village Manager Salmons appointed a board, a subcommittee, so to speak, to take a look at the qualifications and make a recommendation to the board. The members of that subcommittee were Public Works Director Dan Dinges, my deputy chiefs, both Patrick Ulrich and Joe Leonis, and Assistant Village Manager Paula Schumacher, and myself. We looked at the qualifications of all 13. We were able to whittle it down after our research to 4 who have impeccable reputations in the Chicago metropolitan area and throughout our state and the Midwest, quite frankly. And at that point, we brought them in to do presentations and to provide their qualifications and some of their past experiences in our area and throughout the Midwest. At that point, there was an unanimous selection by the committee of Williams Architects, no relation whatsoever. That being said, the board was highly impressed with
Williams.
Due to the fact that we thought they were tremendously responsive. They were tremendous listeners. They really prided themselves and really felt it was impeccably important to allow all interested stakeholders to participate throughout the process. They would slow the process down to meet the needs of the board and various stakeholders throughout the community. And then, quite frankly, we looked at their facilities in our area and throughout the Midwest, and we found them to be outstanding. They spoke a lot about culture. They knew a lot about the culture of Bartlett and the high service expectations of this community. We were impressed with the fact that the executives throughout the architectural firm would be involved throughout the process, and that they wouldn't subjugate that to other people. They wanted to have their hands on throughout the process, and because of that, they limit how many police facilities they do a year. And it was also nice to know that they had past experience within our village through the community center and military memorial, and that they live in town. So that didn't hurt the fact that they were very aware of Bartlett and very proud of our community. At that point, there was a unanimous decision. As Trustee Carbonaro so well put, it's a 3-phase process, of which we would be entering into an agreement of only the first 2 with no obligations to move on to the third. The first one would be simply an objective space needs analysis. In other words, how the building presently stands and what a modern law enforcement facility looks like, and workflow and space needs. They would report that to you, and you could make your determination on that, whether there is space need for greater space or not. The second space would be actually how that would look if there was interest in pursuing this at a future date, and how it could work on the grounds. Is there a potential to go up? Is there a potential to go out and then up? Or can we just do a reconstruction of the present facility? Those would be all the questions that they would plan on answering. We were very impressed with that they were willing to look at it from all different angles. And there is no obligation whatsoever, if we enter into this contract and relationship with them, to move on to phase 3, which would be the actual blueprinting and construction of the facility. So this is just a contract to enter into Williams and Architectural and Associates for phase 1 and 2 in order to give the board the information it would need to make decisions at any time it felt appropriate to do so.
Okay. I would just like to add a few questions, Chief. Back in '92, when they built the original building that was designed for 30 officers,
yeah, the building we're in now was, we actually opened it in, I believe, 1990, which is 25 years ago. It had the objective to service for 20 years. It's been 25, and it didn't. The day it opened, it fit the needs of about 22 officers, what we had at the time. And quite frankly, that's what it worked for, was 22 officers. It wasn't built for 23. And immediately after we moved into it, Bartlett, as you'll remember, became one of the, quite frankly, the fastest growing community in the state of Illinois for many years in a row. And so we very quickly brought on more staff and more programming and more services to a very fast-growing community. So therefore, we started cannibalizing the building almost the second or third year in it, where we started blowing out walls and cannibalizing office space and conference rooms in order to make room for the additional staff. And quite frankly, there's no more walls to be cannibalized, and the staff has grown and then some. So,
Let me ask you, how many officers do you currently have?
57 sworn, 75 total staff. I'll repeat that: 57 sworn officers and 75 staff members.
And there was no extra charge for the extra waterfall effects on the walls that we currently see?
I'm sorry.
There was no extra charge for the waterfall effects that we're currently seeing on the walls right now? Okay, any questions?
You had mentioned that the first building was built in 1990, had 23 officers. How many staff members did we have at that point also?
I think it was about 27 at the time.
You were still
7
a
or 28.
detective? You were still a detective?
I was a detective. So there's no obligation other than it would afford you with all the information you would need to help direct your decisions either immediately or in some time in the near or distant future. You would be in total control of the information at that point. But it would give you the objective information that I think you need to make any future decision on whether you want to invest in repairing the systems in the building we have, or whether you want to look at other options. And they intend to give you some fiscal benchmarks, too, on what you can anticipate depending on which direction you may or may not want to go.
Chief, is there any possibility at all that some of the confiscated drug money could be used to pay for this?
The answer to that would be I do believe there is more than a possibility. I believe the answer is yes.
Excellent. So
I want to just clarify one point. So basically, if I'm correct, 2.5 times larger than what we were in 1990. Is that basically correct?
I think that's spot on.
Okay. I think you need some additional space.
There isn't any reason to have desks in the hallway. There just is no reason for that. There's no. Have you gone through the police department lately? Yeah.
Yeah, this may look like a lot of money, but I mean, if you haven't taken a tour of the police department, I urge you to do
Even
that.
sharing desk time, which I think is pretty common in other departments, there's still not enough room.
We had the opportunity of visiting the police department. I think you were along, correct, Adam?
I was with you.
Yeah. And we walked into the room where you had, don't hold me to this, but I believe it was a half dozen officers, sergeants, and they were all crammed into this little area. And we couldn't even move through around the desks and whatnot. I can't imagine somebody have to work under those conditions. It's just, I admire what you're doing right now. It's amazing with the limited space that you have right now, what you're capable of doing. So,
Are you hopeful that you can remodel or expand, or do you think they would
I'm hopeful of all options. I'm just going to challenge them to give you as many options as you ask for and request, and you'll be invited to participate throughout this process. I think there's hope. I think there's hope, but I think the facts will speak for themselves, and they're pretty reputable at providing very accurate facts that can be challenged, and they didn't come across as pushy whatsoever. They're just going to provide the facts to you and wait for your decisions, either now or in the future, or not.
I know a couple of our neighboring communities, they just built new facilities, so I don't know if that's an option, or if this is kind of the route that you see us going.
Well, I think it is an option, but they're going to be testing the climate as we move through this, so that nobody feels like their hands being forced, or that we're taking you down in a direction that nobody's comfortable going. So this will be an ongoing relationship, and that's why they were chosen. They're very reputable at creating an ongoing relationship where you feel ownership throughout the process.
My understanding is that once they do the needs analysis, they're going to come back with options A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Trustee Carbonaro.
well, I think we should move forward on it. Do we need to make a motion on this, or?
No, we should have to advise to move it on. But one of the things that I have a question about is there a reason why we're spending, after especially the response from the trustees, is there a reason why we're spending the initial $9,000 on a needs analysis when everybody knows there's a need?
Well, it's not only a needs analysis, and we could all say that, but there is something comforting in having the actual facts, industry standards, what works, what doesn't work over there, where the needs are, so that I think experientially it doesn't take you long to be spending in the facility to realize there's a need.
Yeah.
This is more than just that. It's more of it'll take it from the emotional or the experiential to the exact science of what the needs are.
Wouldn't that be part of the Phase 2 facility evaluation?
That would be part of it. It would be actually rolled and laid over that to show you how the needs assessment that you would agree to as being reasonable would look in a varying degrees of potential plans.
Still a little foggy. I'm just
You know, Mayor, here's what having seen it done for this village and the police department when it wasn't so new, they're going to come in and try to look at our functions, because not all police departments do exactly the same thing. How many officers we have in there now, how many officers we're going to have in there in 10 and 20 years, and how does that relate to the need to have, you know, the detectives pretty close to this department, and how those kinds of things interact. And as they go into the second phase, they're going to have how big those building blocks are supposed to be, and square footage wise. And then they can start looking at this site, looking at the options, and moving those building blocks around.
Yeah, I'm still just a little bit, I understand what you're saying, and I think, obviously, they're way smarter than I am at building buildings, but it doesn't process with me why we do a needs analysis and then a facility evaluation. It seems like you could skip the first and just do it all in one, and it would speed up the process a little bit.
And I think the facility evaluation is more like a site plan, not the site plan, but they're used to. But now they're going to say, how can we fit this on here? That's not a needs analysis. That's Phase 2. Where can we fit all this?
What I guess the only thing I'm suggesting is that it seems like Phase 1 is only necessary if we think there's potentially not a need. I think everybody's pretty...
Well, I think it serves a dual purpose. Number one, if anybody were to challenge whether there's a need, and we can see it as potential foregone conclusion, but there may be others in the community that may not, and it would provide that information for them, and not only that there's a need, but where the need is, and if you're going to move on, and how that will look in the site plan.
Sure.
You know, sergeants may need this space, but your investigators need this much more space. That's the science of it.
I don't want to pour any cold water on the process. I just want to try to see if we could save a little money and just move right to the meat of the subject. But if this is the process...
They have to.
Well, and speaking of saving money, I mean, we have gone to other, without naming names, engineering firms, and we said, well, we don't want to pay $25,000. And they have come back and said, well, we'll do it for 20. Is this a firm price or is this negotiable?
This would be a contract not to exceed.
So it's
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
But we could go back to them and say, can you give us a better price or not?
I think this is the contract they're asking for. But yeah, if we ask them to do less, then that would be. If the board asked them to do less, we could entertain that conversation. But. And by the way, it's very, from our research in the industry, it's a competitive quote.
Yeah. And I wasn't questioning that. I'm just wondering if we could collapse it.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand common sense says we could skip Phase 1, but they actually use Phase 1 to assist them in the dynamics of Phase 2.
Gotcha. I understand.
And it's important to do this right so that 20 years from now,
That's right.
not going out and looking to the taxpayers
I agree.
for yet another building. I mean, they just paid for this one 25 years ago. We're going to ask them to pay again.
It's interesting that part of their philosophy is, they said back in the 90s or whatever, they had a 20-year projection on municipal facilities, and now it's 40.
Yeah.
So they don't
have to be.
Yeah.
So.
And interestingly enough, one of the reasons we didn't build as big as we might have back then is that we were non-home rule. So we just built that which our budget and our abilities let us, and fit what we could in it. Stayed within our budget.
And ironically, I think 90 through 92, we were at number 2 with impact permits, number 3, number 4. I mean, we were in the state in the top 10 for almost 4 years.
Great for the township.
Yeah, the building was built with the needs of the moment in mind, and that moment quickly passed us by.
Well, we certainly celebrate your long-lasting, painful environment that you've been working in. So I was in there 2 years ago, and it reminded me of when I worked at a finance company in a cubby hole, and it was not fun. So we appreciate that, and we'll try to get this moving.
It's interesting, you have a nice big office, but you still got to park on the street.
Thank you for your support and your interest.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
And your direction.
And with that, nothing
Recommend
further.
move it along to next board meeting, right?
Yes. We need to move this along. Nothing further to add.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and just as a reminder, we'll be going right into executive session to discuss security procedures pursuant to Section 2C8 of the Open Meetings Act, and to discuss personnel pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act, so we will not be adjourning this meeting. We'll be moving right into the executive session. Then we'll come back out and adjourn this meeting when we're done.
Okay.
Motion in.